Good morning, my friends. TheFreind here, and today I will be delving into Muradin in my next Overexplained Talents video. Why Muradin? I don't know, I've been playing a lot of them lately, and I've been grinding up Storm League, and I've been mostly playing Muradin, and I've been having tremendous success with him, and I am really enjoying him. I feel like Muradin has some extremely good talent diversity, so it'll make good content, and it feels fun to talk about things that I can brainstorm about, so without further ado, let's talk about Muradin. Why do we care about Muradin? Muradin is the jack of all trades tank. He can do everything well, whatever it is you need him to do. Be it a stone wall, maybe you need him to engage, maybe you need him to peel, do damage, isolate, do crowd control, protect the backline, harass the enemy backline, rotate, disengage. He's got TC, he's got everything really. Although he excels at being a jack of all trades, he can fit into any team, no problem. He is not as strong as, being specialized in a certain role. He doesn't offlane as well as Blaze. He doesn't single target lockdown, kill off a target as well as Diablo. He doesn't stall like auto attackers and bruisers as well as Arthas, for example. And he doesn't have the safe picking potential where he can score a guaranteed kill with no counterplay like Stitches does. All in all, Muradin doesn't have those qualities, but he is an extraordinarily flexible tank, and every team is happy to have him on, as he basically acts as glue to make everything work a little bit more smoothly. And he's a very strong hero in his own right. His numbers are pretty high. You have to really give him props for making him fun, even though he's so simplistic. And also, another great feature about Muradin is that he is super straightforward. He's easy in that his abilities have a very specific use case, and you always use it in that case. There's very little branching out, and that's you really assessing the situation at hand rather than you getting complicated by the hero's design. So it gives you the possibility of focusing on the macro, focusing on the map, focusing on what you should be doing, rather than being held up by how do I put my combo sequence. It's a very different feeling when you're playing someone that you understand so well, compared to somebody like Kel'Thuzad, where you have to put immense amounts of focus in making sure that your combos go off correctly. Okay, with that, let's talk about his abilities. His trait, if you're out of combat, you start healing. It's basically that simple. If you haven't taken any damage in the last 4 seconds, you heal 55 health per second. So long as you're below 40%, this gets doubled, which is pretty nice. It'll get you back on your feet, you stay out of combat, you stay in the bush, just vibe around, and then you heal up a massive portion of your health, actually. This is a significant amount of regeneration. And Muradin basically regenerates about 2%. This is baseline, so yeah, he heals pretty quickly. If you feel, generally speaking, you want to use this whenever you can. Don't stress out too much about it, but the really cool part about this is that Muradin never really needs to back for health. He just needs to back for mana. And you can, instead of backing, you can just tap the fountain for a refill of mana. You'll always get healed up thanks to second wind. You don't have to worry about it. So it's pretty cool. Good trait, all in all. His Q is a short-ranged. You toss out a hammer, it stuns the first thing that it hits. If it hits a minion or someone, womp womp, you just miss your stun. Still though, it does okay damage at 110, and it stuns them for 1.25 seconds. 10-second cooldown, very forgiving, super solid. Very simple ability. Generally speaking, this is Muradin's bread and butter. This is the most important ability that he has in his kit. You have to make sure that you land the Stormbolt so that you can guarantee a follow-up or damage onto the enemy. Coordinate with your team on how it is you're going to approach an enemy. Maybe you're going to queue them right away. Maybe you're going to jump in first. Maybe you want to wait until somebody uses their more reliable CC and then you follow up. Lots of ways. Make sure you talk to your team so that they can anticipate the Stormbolt coming out, because they know, hey, Muradin is close to the enemy team. Of course he's going to toss out that hammer, and it's going to do a lot when it does. There's another very important caveat is when Muradin reaches level 10, the heroic stage, he gets a big upgrade to his Q, in that it pierces the first target, so now it hits 2 targets. You can possibly stun 2 enemy heroes at once, and every time he right-clicks, he reduces the cooldown of his Q by 1 second. So Muradin has good 1.11 attack speed, so he can shave off 5 seconds of this. Effectively, you double its potential, and you half its cooldown. So it gets quadruple effect compared to being before level 10, which is a really strong upgrade. Also, you start restoring mana when you right-click. So now that's the other portion of Muradin. Got the healing, got the sustain, so it's really good. Q is a very solid ability. Generally speaking, you want to combo it up with Thunderclap, his next ability, W. Simply slam the ground, dealing a little bit of damage, and you slow everybody around you by 30% for 2.5 seconds. You also reduce attack speed, which is a pretty rare effect. Not so rare in Heroes of the Storm, but generally speaking in MOBAs, you don't have lots of attack speed slows because it is extremely debilitating. This is amazing. Thunderclap is really strong. The slow is very noticeable, and it makes it substantially easier for you to first use your Thunderclap. It's trivial to land. All you need to do is be right next to the enemy. And now that they are slowed, you are much more likely to hit a Stormbolt right afterwards. That is the combo sequence that I recommend. And I also recommend that you prolong the CC duration as much as you can. When you slow them, do not use your Q right away. Instead, you want to prolong the 2.5, 30% slow as much as possible. Use that to right-click the enemy, body block the enemy, and then at the 2-second mark, just before the slow expires, that's when you throw out the Stormbolt. So now, you lock down an enemy for effectively 3 seconds with some very debilitating crowd control. And this makes it substantially more likely that Muradin secures a kill on anything that he's trying to focus down. Whether it is your ganking or in a team fight, does not matter. This simple combo sequence gets you kills, and you need to be comfortable with this. Thunderclap is also very effective in that, when you're in the middle of the enemy team, slowing down everybody is very effective, and slowing down their attack speed makes it much less likely that you get blown up, which is pretty important. And it's also very effective at peeling. You see, people in this game are not accustomed to attack speed slows. I am not. I'm very guilty of it too. When I get attack speed slowed, my orb walking, the act of right-clicking, moving, right-clicking, is so much worse when I'm attack speed slowed. Because your brain anticipates a certain time frame. You attack, and then exactly when that attack comes out, you start walking and then keep going. This breaks that rhythm because it makes it much slower. By reducing how quickly they toss out the attack, they're going to move too quickly, which means they cancel their attack. Not only does it reduce, straight up throughput of damage, it makes them substantially more laggy. And it's pretty easy to capitalize on that and just hit them with another stun and all that jazz. So it's pretty cool. Thunderclap is a great ability. Dwarf Toss is Muradin's Engage. Tanks in this game have great mobility. They're actually among the fastest heroes in the game, despite them being the biggest, which is pretty funny. Dwarf Toss is no exception. It's pretty good. I think it's a 10 range toss. Great part about it is it can go over terrain and walls, so it's not a problem for Muradin at all. He lands, anywhere he wants, and then he gets 30 armor right afterwards. Generally speaking, you shouldn't use Dwarf Toss to engage all the time. If you are mounted and you can approach the enemy, whether it is straight on or from the side, you want to use the mount speed as much as you can. And then you hit them with the slow, and then you hit them with the Q. If you're really desperate and you're reaching, you might jump in and then toss out your Stormbolt to see, hopefully, if you can land a pretty lucky shot. Generally speaking, the E into Q combo is very risky because one, you are blowing your escape. If you jump in and it fails, you have no way to get out, and now you're in trouble. Generally speaking, when you hop in, you do get that armor, but don't rely upon it. It's a nice boost, but you should be going in ideally to jump in and then Thunderclap. Now that you're in range, easy time pressing the W and then easy time pressing the Q. And then after a good amount of skirmishing, you'll be able to toss yourself out. If you toss max range and do a max range Q, it's the most likely to secure a would-be lost kill because typically if you snag that type of kill, congratulations. Your team can follow up and probably gain a lot of momentum off that kill. But it also has the highest likelihood of failure. It's best used to mount up, Dwarf Toss in, Thunderclap, then Q, the combo I just described. But it's up to your judgment. There are plenty of times where Dwarf Tossing into a straight-up Stormbolt is perfectly viable. Good strategy. Just be sure that you land it. I'll say that much. I tend to reserve Dwarf Toss more as an escape. Generally speaking, I don't have to rush into the enemy backline as fast as possible all the time. In fact, I'm perfectly okay with being the middle ground between my team's backline and the enemy team. I just form that wall, no problem. If I need to up the tempo, I can jump in. If I need to retreat, I can toss myself out, no problem. Let's talk about his heroics now. 2 abilities here. Avatar, it's one of the simplest ones in the game. You simply press R, you get 1,000 health. It's that easy. You also get bigger in size, which makes it easier to body block, gets easier to be hit by skill shots. It also gives you a little bit more range, making your right clicks a little bit better. Very simple ability. Generally speaking, you don't need to use Avatar right away. You use it to kind of like discourage focus fire. Because when you go supersize, suddenly your health bar explodes and people don't really want to touch you after that. And there's a good use case scenario for that. Yeah, you don't want to be focus fired. But another instance is that Muradin is typically tanky enough that he doesn't take too much damage and he's not too afraid of dying. You use Avatar as an emergency button. Only until you get brought down to low health and you are in imminent danger of dying do you press Avatar. Because that health is instant. Instant 1000 health, no questions asked. A bit of a shame to use it like that, but better to use an ultimate and live than not, per se, because this is its only purpose, in making you more difficult to kill, and it might as well save your life at it. Generally speaking, Avatar is the de facto standard. Muradin would much prefer Avatar because it makes him much bulkier on the front line. It gives your team a lot more room to maneuver because, hey, you got a big wall in front of you. We're not scared of the enemy team going around Muradin because he's just a really big ball in front of the enemy team. Haymaker is the alternative. It's your offensive-oriented ult. It's okay. It's pretty fun, I will say. I love this thing, but generally speaking, it's not serious. How it works is you point and click an enemy in melee range. You stun them first, and then Muradin launches them, I think, 13 units of distance. It is a massive amount of distance. And then you do crazy amounts of damage, 319, knocking them all the way back. Plus, if you so happen to hit other enemies in the way, or structures, you also deal maximum damage at 319 and you knock them aside. Very good at isolating, picking off a target and getting them to your team. It's also very good at peeling and getting a very troublesome target off your allied heroes. Generally speaking, it's kind of hard to use. Sure, Muradin has a good time of getting enemies into his team, no problem. But peeling is kind of difficult because Muradin tends to be a very forward-based character. Turning around and trying to get into range of a melee assassin trying to harass your backline is very difficult. And by conceding the front line, you might allow the enemy team to collapse upon yours, and that could be a problem. Plus, you need to get around them and then shove them into the enemy team rather than shoving them so far out of range that your team can no longer deal with them. It's kind of troublesome. But Haymaker is very efficient if you're able to shove people across walls. That means they're out of commission for 15 seconds. It's crazy good if you can pull that off. Of course, it's very good against Cho'Gall, Ariel, or Sergeant Hammer. These types of heroes really depend on being brick formation and that they don't get isolated from the rest of the team. By doing so, Haymaker gives you that clear leeway to make sure that you're able to get them into your team, and then you can pick them off. 40-second cooldown, super liberal. You can use this in every single skirmish and then secure kill. It's great. Let's talk about talents now. Level 1 is a mixture between damage and durability or sustain. Perfect Storm is kind of a mediocre talent. Every time you right-click an enemy hero, you gain 0.75 damage to your Q, and if you so happen to kill an enemy hero within 3 seconds of being stunned, you get an extra 10 damage to your Q. That's kind of okay. Generally speaking, I don't like Perfect Storm too much because the damage number is not too much, because you'll get a lot of stacks throughout the game. But still, Muradin is not centered around dealing damage. If anything, you should be prioritizing your survivability, your sustain, your presence on the map, rather than damage. It's up to your team to deal the damage, not you. Otherwise, you'd be a very fat assassin. And Muradin can be a fat assassin. He's actually pretty good at that. But if you pick Muradin, you're probably the only tank. And if you sacrifice your tank talents to deal damage, you're going to feel the lack of a tank. I'm telling you. I don't like Perfect Storm too much. I might pick it up against Murky or the Lost Vikings because there's lots of opportunities where small hero kills contribute full progress towards the quest, so you can really go out of hand. It's kind of okay, but it's not too big of a damage increase, and besides, you're not always going to have your Q. If anything, most of your damage comes from your right clicks. Muradin has very good right clicks. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Dwarf Block, though, is probably the best block talent in the entire game. Casting your toss gives you 4 charges of block. There is no duration. You can cast this minute 0, have it for minute 20. It does not matter. You'll have it on permanently until they are consumed by the enemies. Every time an enemy hero right-clicks you with their auto attack, they deal 75% less physical damage. This is huge. That's a big number. Sonya gets a maximum of 3 at 60% reduction. You get it at 75% for 4. And it's tied on the ability use. So throughout the game, you're in the You can start, at the fountain. You just use your toss, regenerate the mana, no problem. But you have the block charges. You walk into the enemy team, you still have the block charges. It gives you a lot of screening. Enemy heroes might right-click you, where they would deal 100, 150 damage. They're now dealing only 25 to 30. So every time you press E, you're saving yourself anywhere between 300 damage to 700 damage a cast. Plus, if the enemy heroes have slow, hard-hitting right-click heroes, Butcher, Imperius, Ragnars, especially Ragnars, these heroes have ways to increase their damage, but they attack very slowly. Their DPS is overall higher than, let's say, a ranged assassin, but they attack very slowly. That's where your attack speed slow from your W really debilitates them. And the block denies a larger share of it. And it becomes so unfair because Muradin is very difficult to kill with right clicks because of that. It is an amazing talent. On level 1, it just gives you so much more survivability. Of course, you have to be careful of heroes like Tracer, Tassadar, Tychus to a degree, but even then I still think Dwarf Block is good against Tychus. These heroes can shred your block very quickly because they attack super quickly. Still though, it gives you survivability, something you want. Third Wind. So we talked about how his trait is pretty good in that it restores, 55 health per second? So that's about 2% of his life. Third Wind doubles that basically to 4%. And it increases the threshold to 60%, so you have even more double healing. And then you go up to 180 health per second. So effectively, you're healing 6%, 5% of your health every single second that this thing is on. This is so good. Now, generally speaking, I don't pick up Perfect Storm. This is more of a meme talent. I don't pick this in serious games. Dwarf Block is my pitch standard, especially against lots of right-clickers. Even against teams that don't have too much right-clicking, but they have a little bit, I still pick this up. But when there are no cases for these, Third Wind is like the default last pick choice. I'm perfectly happy picking this up for a little bit more sustain. It's especially good against mages with lots of poke and artillery, in which case, hey, you got lots of sustain. Your healer never needs to worry about you, and you're never off the field, which is a great feeling. This is a good trait. Not bad at all. Level 4 has some very good options. Well, all the talents do for Muradin, so I'm going to omit that sentence there. Sledgehammer. Your Q deals 350% damage to bonus damage to non-heroic enemies. And the cooldown reduction you get from that 10 effect from your Q gets increased to 1.25 seconds. So most of this talent's value does not come into play until level 10 because you want that piercing value to double up the damage boost. And you also want that right-click cooldown reduction on your Q, which is very important, by the way. Sledgehammer increases it ever so slightly, but it's mostly about the non-heroic damage. This is good on Black Archbait, because you can one-shot the doubloon camps, the tiny skeletons, very easily, and you can, just steal all the enemy team's camps. Pretty good in that regard. If your team is so desperate for map control and PvE presence that Muradin needs to step in and do it, I think you're already in a losing situation, and I don't think you should be picking this talent. It's a very niche tool for a very specific job. I don't recommend it. It's a good talent, but you should not be picking this up. You should not be in the position that you need to pick this up. Reverberation, though, a very good talent. You increase the attack speed from 30% to 50%, and the duration from 2.5 to 3.5 seconds, and every time you hit enemy heroes with your W, you reduce the cooldown of your heroic ability by 5%. Especially good for Avatar, kind of okay for Haymaker. This is so killer good against heroes with lots of attack speed, especially those that are kind of slippery. If you tag Eldon with your W, that's 50% less attack speed, and he can't use his abilities, he can't use his right clicks, he doesn't deal damage, he can't refresh them either, it becomes much easier to kill. This is the perfect type of hero that you want to use Reverberation on. If the enemy team is super reliant on attacks, lots of attacks, Reverberation completely slams them into the ground. And then you get the bonus ability, heroic ability cooldown reduction, that's really good, just a nice staple on. Very solid, no complaints from me. Against teams with lots of attacks, get this. Thunderburn, though, tends to be my default in other circumstances, though. Hitting any enemy hero with your W now leaves behind like a little lightning field, and after 2 seconds, it will explode, reapplying the effect of your W. At 75% damage. Rather than you dealing 100% damage, you deal 72 damage, which I think is a 75% scalar. Yeah, it's a 75% scalar. That's no problem, though. Thunderburn will apply all effects. It's a perfect mimic. That means you apply another 2.5 seconds of slow, 2.5 seconds of attack speed slow, any damage, and any future talents relate to it, especially like something on level 13 healing static, or even Thunderstrike, but that's kind of uncommon. Thunderbird will apply that again. And it helps a little bit, by putting down the field, you project a zone that enemy heroes are less likely to pass through. So it gives you a little bit more presence in that you can deny an enemy from advancing towards your team. I really like Thunderburn because it technically increases my future scaling with my future talents, and feels really good when you do so. And also, another key point, Reverberation does not increase the slow. It increases the attack speed slow, but not the regular slow. And that's very important because when you're trying to kill an enemy, you don't really care too much if they're attacking slow. You just want to make sure that they're crippled and that you can, catch up to them. Thunderburn increases the slow from 2.5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Reverberation is still on the 2.5 seconds. So in terms of attack speed slow, they're both kind of equal. Reverberation is stronger if you want only attack speed slow, but Thunderburn is better in other cases. Hey, if you miss your W initially on an enemy hero, they can still be applied by the second Thunderburn. So very effective in that regard. I like it a lot. Thunderburn is my choice. Generally speaking, I don't miss the attack speed reduction from Reverberation, but it's a very specific use case. You know it when you see it. You pick it up, you'll be happy. Thunderburn, otherwise. Level 7 is a very good talent tier for Muradin, and he gets lots of power-ups, just like any other hero in the game. Here he has two types he can go down. Heavy Impact. Hitting enemies with your Dwarf Toss are slowed by 80% for 1.5. This is a sleeper talent. People call this talent bad. I've tried it. It's amazing. It's actually unreal. An 80% slow is god tier because there's very few things above 50% in this game. And you can feel every tier. 12, 15, 20, 25, 30. You can feel that slow, gradual progression because everybody's at the same base movement speed. 80% is crazy. It does not decay for 1.5 seconds too. So yeah. And when you slow somebody, that is a guaranteed Q stun. Nobody can dodge that. They have to use an ability at that point. And at that point, using up to escape for a simple Q for a murder, perfectly fine with us. Because again, you have cooldown reduction on your Q. It's not a big deal if you trade ability for ability. Heavy Impact is so good at securing kills, it's kind of crazy. But there is a very big caveat, and there's a good reason why people don't really pick this up. You need to hit the enemies with your Dwarf Toss, which means you have to initiate with your Dwarf Toss rather than walking up to them. Sometimes you want to escape with your E, and if you're forced to jump in, you don't have a way out. So Heavy Impact is full-on offensive, and it's very constraining to your playstyle. It works great when you're, diving in with the rest of your diver heroes. You're trying to breach into the enemy team. Awesome. Heavy Impact is great. But it's tied to an ability. It is tied to you landing the ability, by the way. Dwarf Toss is a very slow-moving mobility spell. No offense to Muradin, he's kind of fat, but enemy heroes can very easily get out of the way of Muradin when he starts to jump towards him. And the landing damage is very small. How should I say this? The area in which he deals damage is very small. So you need to get close enough to jump on them that they don't get out of the way, and you need to land basically directly on their face for you to apply the slow. So it's kind of challenging to use, but when you do, it's great. But I don't like how I'm forced to use it as offensive only rather than using it, trying to get out of the situation. So that's why I don't like Heavy Impact that much. It's a good talent though. If your team needs crowd control, by God, it's good. Give him the X. Hitting an enemy hero that's slow, stunned, or rooted gives you 50% bonus damage for 3 seconds. Not on that hero, but just a buff to yourself for 3 seconds. Really cool. It's an Executioner at level 7. And Muradin benefits a lot from this. He has very easy access to slows and stuns for himself. Most heroes that depend on Executioner need other heroes to apply that, not themselves. Muradin gets it for himself. He's a tank. He can easily apply this. And the damage boost is really significant. For example, he deals 100 damage at 1.11 attack speed. That is 150. It's very respectable. You can out-DPS a lot of heroes. In terms of Assassin Muradin, this is a pretty good talent in which you can very easily just wail, boom, easy. And again, if you follow my combo of W and Qing, you'll prolong the crowd control for as long as possible, which means you effectively have 6 seconds of this, and this is really good. Also, Thunderburn, remember that? Yeah. when you reapply the slow, that too will give you opportunities to give them the axe. So again, that's the synergy already being kicked in. So it's really cool. Giving the axe is important if you are going to be on the front line. You need to apply a little bit more pressure, in which case amplifying your damage makes enemies less likely to stay around you. So you're applying crowd control in the form of threats that if you stay too close to Muradin for a long period of time, you're going to kill them. I don't always pick them up because Skullcracker is the most busted talent in the entire game, bar none. This thing is OP as hell. Every third basic attack against the same enemy, which I think there's like a 7-second timer, so it's very gracious in how much time you have to apply that third hit, deals 90% bonus damage. That's basically 2 auto attacks at once, and you stun them for 0.25 seconds. Oh my god. You might think, oh, what do I care? 0.25 seconds? That's nothing. That is a guaranteed Q. You jump in, you apply your slow, you start hitting them. Because they're slowed, they can't get away from you. And then you hit them once, you hit them twice, you hit them, you know the third one is coming, you stun them, boom, instant Q. They cannot dodge it because your cast time is the same duration, is I think 0.1 seconds against a 0.25 second stun. So it's guaranteed. This is so good. If you're having trouble landing your Qs, in which no shame in that, everybody misses their Qs, but this gives you a lot of reliability in landing your most important ability. You land that stun, you secure a kill against a hard-to-catch hero like Genji or Samuro. They're going to be confident thinking, oh, I can run circles around this Muradin. So easy. I can easily get away. But Skullcracker puts a clock on their lives because if they disrespect you too much, you crack their skulls and then you hit the Q and boom, they're dead. I call this tactic skull counting. I intentionally count. Okay, I jump in, I click, the third one's coming, get ready to Q, click, Q. That's it. So reliable, so lethal. It's crazy because it's actually a 1.5 seconds stun at that point, because you're stacking them on top of each other. And in the duration in which you stun them for that duration, you will have landed 2 out of 3 attacks for the next Skullcracker to come up. And then you Skullcrack them a second time. Now, effectively, you had 1.5 seconds stun, maybe a half second of free time, and then another 0.25 seconds. This is so debilitating. If you are someone like Phoenix, in which you have a long cast time to get away with your warp, if you get stunned at any point in time of that, especially something as minute as a Skullcracker, it gets cancelled and put on full cooldown. And at that point, you're dead. Skullcracker gives you a reliable way of applying crowd control, denying channeling abilities without ever touching an ability. You can use this when silenced. That is so strong. Anduin Bubble, channeled abilities, if you're in range, you can Skullcrack them. And generally speaking, it's very effective because it interrupts commands. So it's not a 0.25 second. It's actually more like a 0.4 second cooldown because the enemy hero that you're bashing needs time to react to the fact that, oh hell, what did I get stunned by? Watch out for, effects and talents that, apply when they get stunned. Ragnaros gets a armor boost when he gets stunned, so that's one thing to watch out. But generally speaking, Skullcracker is so versatile, it really helps you out. I cannot stress this enough. For a tank, you need crowd control, you need reliability. Skullcracker gives you a substantial amount of threat. You become very scary to be near because when you kill them time and time again, they're going to be very afraid of getting close to you. And when they're afraid of getting close to you, you can do what you want easily. Yeah. Heavy impact if your team needs CC, and not through the forms of Skullcracker, by the way. Give him the axe if you need more frontline staying power in which you'll be brawling with the enemy frontline, whether it be a tank or a bruiser. It gives you a lot of damage, or your team is desperate for that damage. You give yourself independence. And Skullcracker for every other situation. In cases, it's just good for damage, it's good for crowd control. It's best of both worlds. Pick this up and do the skull counting tactic that I told you about. Jump in, W, right-click them 3 times, Q, easy. Talked much about Avatar and Haymaker. Generally speaking, you pick up Avatar. The longer you're on the front line, the easier it is for you to Skullcrack, the easier it is to apply your W talents. And yeah, that's all I can say. Avatar just makes it so much easier, and there are future talents that make it even better as well. It scales very well throughout the game, and yeah, you better. Haymaker, in an Assassin Muradin where you got Perfect Storm, Sledgehammer, maybe Thunderburn, and then give him the axe, gives you that either finishing potential or it lets you fish for heroes and then shove them back into your team. I don't recommend this too much because it makes you very brittle, and generally speaking, Muradin wants to be on the front line for as long as possible so that he can apply his level 7 talents, which are super strong. Let's talk about 13 though. Bronzebeard Rage. This is for some reason the best burn talent in the game, for a hero. You deal a little bit of damage to everything around you, that's pretty standard. You have like a little bit of an immolation aura going on, but you heal for 75% of that damage dealt, so that's pretty good. You're in the middle of a few enemy heroes, boom, that's like, 45 damage, so about 30 healing. Mid-game, this is about maybe 40 damage per second, so you're actually healing about 100, so that's not bad. You go into the middle of a minion wave or a bunch of Nazeebo summons, you're healing off all those things. So you're healing like 300 a second just being in the middle of them, so that's pretty cool. But more importantly, when you hit an enemy hero with your Q, which happens all the time, you will triple. Your burn damage is tripled. So now you're dealing 45 damage per second to everything around you. This gives Muradin so much killing power. You'll be just like, you're a Vala, you're hitting the Muradin, he jumps you, but then he's killing you easily. This is why. And it gives him a lot of healing off that. Remember, when you're increasing the damage, you're also increasing the healing. So that 45 damage you're doing per second is actually 30 health per second. A little bit more than that, to be honest. And if you're hitting multiple things at once, it gives you a lot of durability. Damage and durability. This is a shockingly good talent. And it gives Muradin a lot of weight clear, too. Not that you need it too much in the mid to late game as a tank. Other heroes should be dealing with that. But it lets him do something that he previously had a little bit of trouble doing. So, very flexible, reliable, powerful talents. I really don't know what they were cooking. I don't know why Muradin gets healed, but this is strong. This is good. You should pick up this talent. Healing static, though, is a personal favorite of mine. I don't always pick it up, but I like to pick it up if I go full on tank. So every time you hit an enemy hero with your W, you heal for 5% of your maximum health. That's pretty good. You go into the middle of the enemy team, you hit maybe 4 to 5 heroes, 20 to 25% of healing. That's pretty strong. But it stacks with Avatar. When you increase your maximum health, you're also increasing the numbers you get off of healing static. So that's really strong. And Thunderburn, that copy, also applies healing static. That's great. So now you jump in, you hit maybe 4 heroes, and then the burn hits another 3 heroes. That's 35% of your maximum health. And if you pre-popped Avatar first, this is the only use case for using Avatar early, by the way, in that you want more healing off of healing static. You heal for 35% of your maximum health. At level 13, I think Muradin gets like maybe 7,000 health with Avatar. That's a big deal. You just popped up 2,000 health out of nowhere. Whew, because of healing static. This thing's great. And there are lots of enemy hero clones, Samaros, Mishas from Rexar, etc. That's just more bodies to hit, and it's great. Healing static is awesome. I recommend this a lot. Generally speaking, I prefer Bronzebeard Rage because Muradin likes to jump the enemy healer, the enemy carry. It's better that you have the damage threat, but sometimes Muradin needs to flex into a stone wall frontline so that he can give space for his backline. And healing static lets you stay in the frontline for a long period of time. It's really fun being an unkillable juggernaut. Thunderstrike. If you hit just one enemy with your W, you deal triple the damage. Whew, pretty good. You catch out somebody by themselves, it's a very easy Thunderstrike, and they take a lot of damage. This is monstrous amounts. Thunderburn technically benefits, but it's very difficult that it scores this twice on the same target. Still, though, it gives you a lot of killing potential as an assassin Muradin because you can usually find somebody by themselves, and you can intentionally orient yourself in that your W only hits one target by moving aside. It does lots. It's pretty good. It also increases the duration of your E armor by 2 seconds. I think this used to be another talent, just shoved into it. It's okay. I don't think about this too much. It's a very niche scenario. Muradin's not always going to have the opportunity in taking advantage of this, so I tend not to default this. I find healing static very useful, and Bronzebeard Rage to be better overall in terms of killing somebody rather than waiting 8 seconds for triple damage when I could just be burning them with Bronzebeard Rage. And again, your Q has cooldown reduction. You're going to be using it super often. Level 16. Very good options too. Dwarf Launch. Oh my god. What? Okay, this works a little bit differently. I thought this was an 80% increase. I'm sorry. Dwarf Launch increases the range of Dwarf Toss by 40%, which is huge. Now, if you see an enemy, you are in range to jump on them with Dwarf Launch. It gives you so much engaged power and threatening presence. You can easily dive bomb into the enemy team without question. It may, 4% might not seem like much, but the base range is already super high. It makes it super easy to jump over big walls and get out of sticky situations. You can jump into the enemy team without any fear in the world, immediately starts the fight in the enemy back line, go from there. But it also reduces the cooldown of the toss if you hit an enemy hero upon landing. I did not know that. I just took it for its range and it's been amazing. Wow. Even better. Dwarf Launch is an amazing flexible upgrade. You love to see this. It gives you peeling potential. It gives you, jumping into enemies' backline so you can mess them up potential. Super good. Recommend this. Highly. Imposing Presence is a generic talent that a few other heroes possess. Rexar, etc. Gazlo to it with a stranger requirement, but Imposing Presence allows you to slow the attack speed of everybody around you by 50% upon usage, and their movement speed by 20%. So that's a way to activate Give 'em the Axe. More importantly, though, when you just use your W and the enemy team have dodged it, or you're holding onto your W, or it just expired, that's when you use Imposing Presence, so that you can really stack on this slowing. It's mostly used for attack speed slows because that's the stronger portion of it. The movement speed is whatever. You have stronger forms of crowd control. The attack speed is super debilitating. So if the enemy team is once again super reliant on their attacks, Dwarf Block, Reverberation, Imposing Presence, and you lock them down. Plus, it hits everything around you, so you can dive into the enemy team, and then you can impose presence. And even if your W is on cooldown, this is like a second W. You don't want to stack them. You want to use either one or the other. Also, passively, anytime an enemy hero attacks you, you reduce their attack speed slow by 20%. Pretty handy. Makes it much harder to kite around Muradin because, again, as I said, by slowing the attack speed, you make it slower for them to wind up, hence they cancel it too soon. Makes it really complicated to be in the presence of Muradin because of this. Pretty handy. Only if the enemy team has so much right click that you worry about it, but Dwarf Launch is just better. And then lastly, we have Stone Form. Now, your trait becomes an activatable ability. If you like, you can activate it to heal Muradin for 30% of his maximum health over 10 seconds. Mind you, maximum health. So that stacks with Avatar especially. Second wind is disabled during the 10 seconds that is healing, just to be not overpowered. But once the 10 seconds is up, trait is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter that it's on cooldown. The trait will apply if you're out of combat. But in combat, Stone Form allows you to give you just a sudden burst of healing. 30% is a big number. 10 seconds is pretty slow. But more importantly, when you're stacking healing static in Avatar, it's very difficult to burst down Muradin. So the Stone Form tends to get full effect. Your only condition is remembering that you have to press your trait to activate it. I tend to forget about it because it's not an obvious, button on my hotbar. So half the time I forget about this talent's existence, which is really embarrassing, but it's super good. Again, front line wall Muradin is super viable. With Stone Form, it gives you that extra edge to stay on the front line even longer. When I need durability, but not engage power, Stone Form is usually the way to go. Posing presence against solo attackers, of course, and Dwarf Launch is just generically useful. You don't need a healing. The fights are super snappy, scrappy, short-lived. Dwarf Launch. Alrighty, level 20. Now for Muradin, he has some very good options for level 20, fortunately. Unstoppable Force is the upgrade to Avatar, and I will tell you, I'm a little bit of a hipster. I like this a lot, actually. Whilst Avatar is active, you have 20 armor. So on top of Muradin's ridiculous amount of health, the bonus health he gets from Avatar, and, attack speed slows, armor you get from your E, you get 20 armor on top of that. It just makes your health bar go a lot further. And by the way, 20 armor actually it doesn't mean you live 20% longer. It actually means you live 25% longer based on how the math works. So it's just actually pretty cool. On top of him already being unbelievably tanky. But more importantly, also, every time you right-click, you're going to reduce the cooldown of your W and your E by 0.75 seconds. Very similar to the effect that you get for your Q. So, this allows you to stay Avatar allows you to stay in the front line, in the back line. You don't care. You whack on whatever it is you want without a care in the world. Avatar lets you do that. An Unstoppable Force basically doubles that incentive and reward. Because one, you get armor, so you're not going to care whatever comes your way. And two, now you're reducing the cooldown of your other abilities. What does that mean? That means you slow the enemy team down more. It means you can jump on them more frequently. And if you have any talents, i.e., Dwarf Block, Reverberation, or Thunderburn, especially give them the axe, and then you have Healing Static, especially a big point of that. And Dwarf Launch being a very strong upgrade, you get all that more often. You basically have the cooldown of all of your abilities. It's crazy. In terms of durability, in terms of sustained power, something that you'll be basically in the front lines all the time, Unstoppable Force is incredible. It's such a good upgrade. A lot of people kind of underestimate it, but truth told, there is a good reason for that. It's mostly because of the existence of Rewind, and that's a little bit too good. But it's so strong. If you don't need like immediate blow-up potential, and you just need more staying power, more crowd control, like over a extended duration, and not so much so burst, because the enemy team is kind of hard to take down right away, Unstoppable Force gives you that energy to just keep going forward. It's a good upgrade. It feels great to put on as well. So, major synergy, if you picked up a lot of talents that have something to do with your abilities, Unstoppable Force gets more value out of it. Yeah, it's really good. I recommend it. Grand Slam. Although Haymaker is a good ability, it kind of doesn't really fit the tank role, because Muradin really would prefer to just be on the enemy and just keep whacking at them rather than shoving them back. And then half the time it kind of saves their life, which is pretty funny. Grand Slam is a very strong upgrade to it. First off, second charge on your ultimate. It's just good, period, Second of anything is really good. And I've talked about this in other videos. By having a second charge, it means even if you only use one charge, that means you have a third one cooling down. And then the other one is ready to go whenever you want it. So in effect, you have 2.5 charges. It's not just one, or not just two, I should say. Getting an extra charge from 0, going from 1 to 2 means 2.5, really, based on how often you use the ability. Of course, second charge is really good. You can punch someone, you can punch them again, or you punch someone first, and let's say you jump in, you successfully land behind somebody, you knock them back. Then you stun somebody, that's your second victim. Grand Slam them back. If a hero dies within 3 seconds of being hit by that Haymaker, you also regain the charge. So this is a phenomenal finishing ability. Somebody low in health, you can walk up to them and just slam them into the ground. It instantly kills them. Plus, in most scenarios, knocking back a squishy into your team, like a perfect bowling ball throw, one of those strikes, you get a charge back, and you can just go wild with it. 10 is kind of mediocre, but 20 in Grand Slam makes it a lot stronger. Also, I forgot to mention, 25% bonus damage on your arm. How's that? And he hits really hard, too. 319 damage is nothing to scoff at. You just get that damage for free. It's really good. And, it makes it easier to, get the refresh on it, too. So Grand Slam is a phenomenal ability. Also, do not underestimate the power that Muradin has in just bowling the enemy team, They line up, you can Grand Slam them. You do a lot of damage. By having a second charge, you can really do some nasty things. And also, you could totally shove somebody, far. You end up last hitting somebody that's low on the health. Bada bing, bada boom. That is a great usage of Grand Slam, too. It's actually a very precise ability. It's very accurate. Pretty easy to work with, and it's really strong. That's all about it. If you go Haymaker, you should probably go into Grand Slam. Avatar, usually not Unstoppable Force, but it's always an option just on the table. Something that you need in a rare circumstance. Speaking of rare circumstances, Hardened Shield is even more rare. Activate to gain 75 armor for 4 seconds. Simple ability, does great. Say you jump in, you get blown up all the time, but you want to stay on their backline, so you can take away focus fire from your front line, that you're disrupting the enemy team, preventing their backline from interacting with their front lines to prevent any combo shenanigans. Hardened Shield, make sure you don't accidentally blow up. I will say, if you have to pick this up, you're probably in a losing situation, because generally speaking, if you're ahead and you're having a good game, Muradin doesn't tend to get focused down. And you have a free ticket to do whatever you want with Avatar. If you do get focus fired, usually you die because of percentage health damage, not because of raw damage. So Hardened Shield does nothing to prevent that kind of thing. Of course, in a rare burst game, lots of CC, lots of magic damage coming about, Hardened Shield will give you that much needed survivability and make sure you don't get blown up, especially if there's predictable CC, predictable damage, something to just keep you alive. You'll know it when you need it, you'll feel that you need it, and you'll pick it up. Generally speaking, I like to be a little bit more proactive though, and Rewind is basically the best thing in the game. Muradin has some very strong abilities, And not only that, he has very strong talents that make them stronger. Level 10, your Q stuns 2 people. Level 16, you get a big increase to the range of your E, so you can jump on anybody. Level 4, you have 2 very strong options to greatly increase the power of your W. By rewinding, you can jump in, you stun a target, you can immediately rewind. That's another stun. So that's effectively I think that's a 2.5 second stun. Yes, that's right. 2.5 second stun. Guaranteed. It usually results in a kill. And 60 seconds score a kill in the late game is totally worth it. Because death timers are 65 seconds. And because you kill somebody, that means you probably won the objective, you probably won the mercenary, you probably won a fort. And the enemy team is not going to mess with you for the next 60 seconds. By the time the next fight comes in, you'll have it again. In fact, you'll have it sooner than the next fight begins, which is really cool. So Rewind gives you a free ticket to just win the game. Plus, I cannot describe to you how powerful it is. If you manage to stun 2 enemy heroes, you can immediately rewind, press another easy Q on those 2 targets because they lined up. That could, win the game on the spot. Plus, the flexibility. I jump in, I stun, I do my combo. Okay, I'm taking a lot of damage. I can rewind. Choose to jump out with Dwarf Launch or Dwarf Toss, whatever it is you choose. Generally speaking, you don't pick Rewind if you don't have a lot of talents invested into your abilities because you're refreshing weaker abilities rather than the upgraded versions. That is something that you want to keep in mind. Rewind is so flexible. You jump on somebody, you kill them. Hey, there's another target. Let's rewind so we can get to them faster. Really kick up the tempo. So good. So generally speaking on 20, you should pick up Rewind. This is your default stance. You pick up Unstoppable Force when you really need it. If you want Haymaker, Grand Slam is highly recommended. Also, if you're playing Assassin Muradin, by the way, Rewind is very important because Thunderstrike is a big portion of your damage, and then you got Perfect Storm. So doubling those means doubling your damage. Even though you have Haymaker, increasing its damage by 25%. And typically, if you punch them, that means they're out of your range. So you can't take advantage of the second charge. But Rewind, no problem. No problem at all. You jump on them, you kill them, it's great. Though Grand Slam is more effective if, let's say you're getting some good executions, then you'd probably want to go that instead. And then Hardened Shield, you'll know when you need it. It's when you're fighting a lot of burst damage. Alrighty, so let us talk. What talents should you pick for Little Muradin? I recommend your tryhard build. Your Dwarf Block, Thunderburn, Skullcracker, Avatar. Typically, Bronzebeard range, you might go into Healing Static. Both is equally viable. Dwarf Launch, more often than not. Even though your other 2 options might be strong depending on the game, I prefer Dwarf Launch as default because that range increase allows you to start fights unfairly. People think they're out of your range. No, you're not. You're in range. You can always toss on them. And then, not to mention, your Q still has a little bit of extra tip of the spear kind of range. You can catch out a lot of people that don't anticipate Muradin having that kind of mobility. Forcing yourself onto the backline is very threatening, and Dwarf Launch really lets you do that. And then 20, it's typically Rewind. This is your tryhard build. It will work well into almost any enemy team, and it is extremely effective. Build 2 is more so kind of like frontline Muradin. Pick your choice between Third Wind or Dwarf Block, typically Dwarf Block because physical damage is very common, and there's a lot of hard-hitting heroes. You might as well go with that. If there's lots of poke, magic damage, you might want to go Third Wind instead. You want to go either or, Reverberation or Thunderburn, depending on how much right-clicking they have. If they have lots, Reverberation. If not too much or flexible, Thunderburn. It's better that way. You have your options of going Give Him the Axe or Skullcracker. You can even go Heavy Impact, but I don't really like it too much in this build. Go Skullcracker if you need to apply a little bit of pressure, or Give Him the Axe if you need to maintain the front line against the enemy team. Skullcracker gives you a little bit of peeling. You go Avatar. You go Healing Static. Therefore, every time you press W, you get a big heal, especially with Avatar. That's a big deal. And with Thunderburn, you double that up. And then you pick up Stone Form. You combo this with Avatar. You go Avatar, you have more health. This heals you for more. And now, not only are you basically increasing your maximum health by 40%, you're healing another 30% on top of that. Lastly, you go Unstoppable Force. This build lets you stay on the front line to do whatever it is you want. And you leverage your level 7 as much as possible. Typically, it's given the axe so that you have maximum possible damage throughput. And nobody can ever kill you. If your team desperately needs a strong front line that can hold its own, let's say you have a Tassadar, a White Mane, Kalthuzan, these heroes wants a meat shield in front of them that does not move, and Muradin does not move. And you still are very threatening. Muradin's base kit is so flexible and strong that you don't need other talents to perform well. Not really. Just need to do your part as a tank, where you disrupt the enemy team, you stay the front line, you prevent them from approaching you, and you protect your team. This is an unkillable Muradin, and I love it. This is my favorite build. Typically, I'm forced to go into build 1 because I have to, do playmaking, and I have to shot call, and I have to pick out targets, focus fire them. It's, it works great. It's a good time. But build 2, there's nothing like walking in the enemy team, not caring at all. It is truly heaven. And then build 3 is Assassin Muradin. Why not? I don't know. Typically, Muradin has lots of flexibility. You can pick up other talents, but if you want to kill somebody, you go Perfect Storm, Sledgehammer. Technically, Thunderburn is a good thing. Technically. You go give him the axe. You go Haymaker. You pick up Thunderstrike. You pick up Dwarf Launch. This is very important. This is a crucial component to the build so that you can actually jump on enemies and kill them in a rapid time. Most assassins have their mobility from level 0. You need it at level 16. And then you go Rewind or Grand Slam. Rewind if you have a high priority target you need to kill. Grand Slam is if you have no trouble killing your target, you might as well get the extra charges from your R so that you still have a lot of relevance in the team fight that comes after when you score a pick. Rewind is just maximum killing potential, and it gives you a little bit of safety in allowing you to jump out of the situation when you're done. Or if you need a refill and gas, just to make sure the guy dies. That is what Muradin likes to talent build. Who works well with Muradin? Anybody. Anybody on this entire roster works well. Seriously, I'm not even joking. Muradin especially works well with who? I don't know. There's no specialty. I think there might be somebody, but I think of nobody. Truth told, I am a very big fan of going Anduin, Uther, especially Rhaegar. Rhaegar is a great option as well. These type of heroes really appreciate having a little bit of CC to the team, and they just round out with these extra wide range crowd control, stuns, slows over time, and not just one-time usage, cleansing, pulling you out, all that jazz. All the other heroes work very well with Muradin. They're very happy to see him on the team. It's a great thing. Yeah, it means that I talk less. Anyways, pleasure having you guys listen to me rambling about Muradin, and I will see you next time. Alrighty, bye-bye.